After a couple years of owning this game, and having loved PaRappa 1 for some time, I finally gave the second one a playthrough. There were certainly moments that I almost felt disappointed that it wasn't PaRappa 1. An unfair comparison, I know. But this game certainly grew on me the more I played it. When it comes to information about this sequel, especially in interview form, there isn't much out there on the internet. I believe that's the unfortunate side effect of PaRappa 2 not selling much better than Jam or Lammy, or as unexpectedly well as the '97 classic. I didn't know this before, but Lammy actually got poor reviews, and while PaRappa 2 also didn't fare quite as nicely review-wise, a lot of those reviews were similar to how I felt. Most people playing just wanted PaRappa 1 again. In many ways, 2 does live up to the hype of 1, but it makes itself somewhat more accessible in gameplay, feeling much easier in my opinion. I feel like many people know this sequel exists, but few have played it, let alone heard much of the music. With all that being said, I want to celebrate what this game has to offer, as well as its underrated animated cousin. PaRappa 2 takes the absurd concepts of the first game and takes them up several notches. As soon as you put the disc in, you get hit with a wild theater scene where the noodle alien blasts out of the screen and starts attacking PaRappa Town. It's somewhat foreshadowing later events, but all we need to know now is that noodles are the MacGuffin to get this plot going. It's goofy and awesome. Before each rap battle, you get a bit of story mixed with the crazy exaggerated dream signatures PaRappa anxiously makes up to terrify himself. Which, by the way, I absolutely love how PaRappa's anxiety-riddled body always comes up with the most insane scenarios that become the catalyst for him to take action. I think this replicates what being a young teenager really is like. I can't tell you the amount of times I had to fantasize my way through just ordering food from a new place before really doing it as a kid. And maybe as an adult. And speaking of being a teenager, the story is very much about PaRappa thinking he needs to man up and force himself into adult roles, all because Sunny Funny, still his main love interest, calls him a baby for not eating her noodle dish. Noodles again, huh? Yeah, so PaRappa apparently won a lifetime supply of noodles in some contest, but he quickly gets burnt out on eating them, but of course Sunny doesn't get the hint. Later I'll get to how these songs actually sound and if I like the style of them all, but for now, I'll just talk a bit about how these raps play, and what they mean when it comes to the overall message of the game. Let's look at stage 1, with the song titled Toasty Buns. This here is an intro to gameplay, much like Master Onion's karate song, and it works perfectly well as a tutorial, except for the fact that there is a literal tutorial with the boombox before each and every stage. I got pretty annoyed with these, given that you have to do multiple inputs with multiple lines, and get a good score 10 times, so that can take almost 3 minutes before the actual rap. For a while I didn't know you could skip these segments, so I was hyped when I randomly pressed start one time and skipped it. The PSP version of PaRappa had something like this, but it was on the title screen, not inserted in between gameplay. There's a certain character in the first stage that becomes vital later, but for now, all that happens is PaRappa getting into a situation where he's taught the importance of cooking, working, and serving customers like a man. Apparently. So going back to that growing up allegory, each stage emphasizes this theme in subtle ways with their lyrics, while the actual cutscene before the raps almost always outright mock PaRappa's insecurity. Stage 2 has the song Romantic Love, and the cutscene shows PaRappa and PJ coming to the conclusion that PaRappa's dad needs to invent something that can stop the noodleization of a bunch of stuff in town. We then see PaRappa's dad as well as Sunny's dad messing with a shrinking remote until they turn into ant-sized people. Instead of realizing something's wrong, PaRappa and PJ turn on the TV and find out that Master Onion has become the host of a romantic karate show. Of course, wanting to be grown up and understanding that romance and sexuality are part of the process, PaRappa goes hard trying to get involved with this. PJ dancing with PaRappa is the best part, though. They even hold hands and spin each other around. It's awesome. I also wanted to mention that each stage gets increasingly more complicated, with this stage introducing double lines with faster inputs, while the next stage has us using the controller bumpers. In stage 3, with the song called Big, PaRappa and his friends end up all getting shrunken down and of course, an ant comes to play. In a cheeky way, this ant and PaRappa both want to be big and be able to do something about crime and really influence what happens in the world. But as soon as they both literally become big, reaching up to the galaxy, they panic and cry out to be small again. The rhythm for this song is very fun to play as well, throwing in some quick double inputs to throw you off. The title card to stage 4 is called We'll Turn You Into a Real Man, where PaRappa and PJ are made to join General Pot and go through basic training. Funnily enough, Instructor Mussolini's sister is the teacher in the song here, and she totally does a little riff off of the fan favorite song.
As easy as you say, remember that phrase again? When I say boom, 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 you say bam, bam, bam. No pause in between, come on, let's jam.
I wish more of the songs did this sort of thing, but it is tasteful to not rely on old stuff too. The visuals in this ones are downright fun, having PaRappa rock climb, BMX, skateboard, and a ton of other stuff. Stage 5 has the song Hair Scare, where everyone in town who goes to this one possessed barber can only get a noodle afro. Definitely weird, but the stage is significant since it's the first time PaRappa goes out of his way to save Sunny from looking fugly. This is the first rap that has you do quick LR inputs. When you beat the rap, you get the octopus dude to go back to his usual self. Oddly enough, despite Sunny being the reason PaRappa is even on this self-improvement journey, she's not really involved in what he's doing, but we'll get to her later. Stage 6 has PaRappa's dad showing a few of the kids what he has in his secret basement. Sounds a lot more scary than it is. He apparently figured out that a fake version of the Nintendo Virtual Boy is going to be the cure to the noodleization stuff. So PaRappa decides to be brave and use this as his chance to prove to himself and the others that he's grown by defeating whatever unbeatable boss is in this game, despite the others saying he can't do it. The song titled Food Court is one of the most different in the game, having a pixelated look and sound to it all, as you battle the masters you fought previously, throwing noodle versions of a tennis ball back and forth. Each master raps at different paces similar to their own songs, so it becomes a challenge to get the flow right between each one. It's quite fun, much like the awesome bathroom rap from the first game. In Stage 7, we are shown that the noodles are fighting the entire town of PaRappa with tenacity, so the general and all of your friends set off to attack them with the dad's inventions at their disposal. As they fight, they finally found out the culprit of this noodle business. It's the burger shop's son. He does a monologue that's actually pretty good, too.
And I'll tell you why. I was destined to become a burger shop owner from the day I was born. My dad was so into burger research that all I got to eat was burgers, burgers, burgers. Burgers for a snack, burgers for breakfast, burgers for lunch, and burgers for dinner!
So then we've got to wrap it out and try to reason with him that just because he doesn't want everything to be burgers, he also can't have everything be noodles.
Thanks, brother. Let me understand that a man must understand to keep his options open.
Now that's a line PaRappa can get meaning from. Stage 8 is significant, and not just because it's the final one. This is the one time I feel like Sunny Funny is actually cool and aware of the fact that PaRappa is a really good-hearted kid. She even sings, and the video that goes along with her song does this thing where she clearly watches all of PaRappa's actions from a distance, and the longer it goes on, the more you can tell she looks up to him as is. And it wouldn't matter if he's a teenager or if he's a man.
Since then, here and there, my life's become like a roller coaster ride, up and down, round and round. Bad times and good times are on hand. We try to live up to our feelings.
The last song is called Always Love, and as expected, it's the most difficult. I had to try it again a few times because the timing messed me up a bit. Much like the first game, to get a better score, you have to do 1 or 2 lines exactly on point before double tapping an input to freestyle it and impress the teacher. That's also how you end up doing a cool rating, but you can't get a cool rating until you finish all the levels at least one time. Once you get into the cool rating zone though, there are no prompts on screen and you have to freestyle it like a madman. I found it a little easier to get into the cool rating this time around, always pressing inputs just a second or so before they appear. So the ending cutscene has PaRappa narrating, talking about the town being back to normal, how his friends are doing their usual stuff, how his dad is helping the military, and how he's on his way to Sunny's house. There is one thing that's off, though.
Wow. I can eat anything now. Anything but cheese. I want another lifetime supply of cheese.
With all that being said, I could have sworn there was a line in this game where PaRappa talks about not needing to become a man, that being himself was all that mattered, but I can't find it to save my life. Whether that's in there or not, I think PaRappa's story can still resonate with a lot of people, and makes this experience more of a wholesome one. The masters in PaRappa 2 are all mostly new, starting with the first one, Beard Burger Master, the shop owner. The character designer, Rodney Greenblatt, once said that he got his beard purely because of the gross out factor. Imagine someone cooking your food with a long unkempt beard hanging over everything. Other than that, there isn't much to be said about how he looks. He's pretty basic, almost just a background character, but it's the son who ends up being Colonel Noodle, who makes his first appearance here as a dutiful manager. I know we're jumping a bit, but Colonel Noodle is a much more fun design to look at. He feels like an Incredibles character or something. He even acts like one. It's also a nice touch that he has an afro, just like the ones that crazed hairdresser was giving everyone in town, suggesting that maybe it was Colonel Noodle who made the octopus do that based on narcissism. With Stage 2, you get a slightly redesigned Master Onion. He's got his hilarious Flava Flav looking tracksuit on, sitting next to his unnamed woman dance partner. In the first game, he was a stereotypical karate dojo master, and now he's a cheap rip off the gaudy chain-wearing rapper. It's so good. Guru Ant is so much like Prince Flea Swallow, the reggae frog from PaRappa 1. He immediately had that smooth voice and somewhat out-there style that made me love the prince. His lyrics feel very chill, and a lot of the lines reference stopping crime and helping kids get off the streets. I think the beard with the unibrow gives him a look of purposeful unkemptness, as if it's his mission is more than his appearance. This is a good time to talk about Papa PaRappa, the inventor who looks like an average blue-collar guy. The pens in his chest pocket give him the constantly in search of ideas kind of vibe, and the little hat on top sort of pulls it together, matching the color of his shoes to warm with the blues in his clothing. He's definitely more active in this game, and he reminds me a bit of the Pickles dad in Rugrats. General Potter also does more now. Of course, he's literally designed as a pothead, smoking grass out of his pipe. Yes, I do get the joke. But he's still not all that calm in this game, yelling about this and that. At least now, he actually goes out of his way to help PaRappa fight the noodles. His baton is a nice touch, given that he actually manages the new recruits for a bit in one of the cutscenes. Instructor Musisha is Mussolini's sister, as mentioned earlier. The fact that she has a military uniform paired with a pink tutu is iconic. I like her fake lashes too. Plus, have you seen the way she kills a ramp? The hairdresser octopus doesn't have a name, but there are two versions of him. His possessed version is scary and red, and they do a lot with the facial features, while the blue one is more smiley. Regardless, the ugly cake tear looking yellow dress is terrible. I am interested in why he's got one of those third eye markings on his forehead, though. It's an interesting touch, and it makes me wonder if the outfit has some more of a cultural meaning that goes over my head. A lot of PaRappa's friends are in this from last time, including the big jerk dog, but he doesn't talk. I feel like the characters make a lot of sense in how they talk, but PJ stands out as odd to me. I got so attached to his anime version, being way more mellow and deep voice, that his change into a high-pitched, excited, and bouncy partner in crime took some getting used to. He still looks the same. I just found him so drastically different here to serve better for the plot. I thought it was a little weird. I figured Katie would have had a more important role as a sidekick, but I guess she did a lot of stuff and Lammy, and that was all her screen time. In the video I made on PaRappa 1, I went pretty in-depth about the main director, scenario writer, art director, and lyrical composer. Here are their names again. Masaya Matsura, the director and founder of Nana and Shana, Gavin Ito, the writer, Ryo Watabe, Master Onion and the lyricist, and then the character designer, Rodney Greenblatt, who is involved in many parts of the games and the anime. And while we're on the topic of Greenblatt, I found an interview from him that has been saved from a defunct website. Link for the full interview will be listed below.
After the success of the original PaRappa, I'm sure there was a lot more pressure on yourself and Mr. Matsuda to top it with the sequel. What designs did you come to PaRappa 2 knowing you immediately wanted to incorporate, and what ideas came to you as the project went on?
There was a lot of pressure to make an even better game. Too much. Matsura felt he must do something radical and shocking. I didn't agree. I wanted to do something simple. Matsura is the leader, so his plan went on, and Jammer Lammy was born. As I thought, it was too confusing. I felt Matsura was trying to alienate Sony Computer with Lammy. I don't know why. They really wanted PaRappa. 2 years later, Sony Computer got their wish, PaRappa 2 for PlayStation 2. It was nice to return to PaRappa. I was glad to be designing with him again. Unfortunately, I felt the script to PaRappa 2 was too complicated. What I wanted to do with the game was different from what Matsura had in mind.
Just in this snippet, it seems that there was an underlying battle in development, not just with Sony pushing for a good monetized project, but between creatives. Regardless of this, I think PaRappa 2 does a good job of safely continuing what the first game was building toward. The title screen feels much like the first game, but when it shoots you into a loading screen, it's got this great graphic and really sick DJ-PJ beat going on. Instead of the animated cutscenes having the charming colorful border like before, this one goes full screen. Only the title cards have that old background, which I found quaint. The in-game models of both the characters and the world keep with that 2D South Park cutout look, something a lot of people found disappointing at the time. I think it's totally fine. It makes it age better, even if I know for a fact that they could have made it 3D with the graphic capability of the PS2. I can imagine a world where PaRappa Town looked a bit like Katamari Damacy's world, but that's not how it went, and I think maybe, at the very least, it kept the franchise looking consistent and not like the crazy jump from Resident Evil 3 to Code Veronica. I still think it's okay that people expected that leap, though. It was exciting at the time to see how different hardware capability was. Unlike today, where the difference between a PS4 and 5 can be very minimal. One thing I didn't really vibe with was the interface during the raps. It might sound picky, but I don't like the meters that bounce back and forth that are supposed to tell you how the masters think you're doing. The left meter focuses on how well you followed the beat of the song, the middle one focuses on how good your freestyling is, and the right one focuses on your funk, which refers to how well you're doing in general. I'm also not really into the design they settled on for the pill-looking capsules holding your score, and if it's good or bad or cool. Before, it was just simple and it bled into the background. There's just a lot of stuff cluttering the screen in this game, and maybe I'd feel less like that if things were smaller in scale. There were a couple new features of this game, one being the practice rounds with Boxy that I mentioned earlier. But if you really do well on a level, you get a bonus round similar to the car beat-em-up section in Street Fighter 2. But in this one, you break plates Master Onion students hold up that are color-coded based on triangle, circle, X, and square. It's kind of funny, because if you hit them too early, the kids go flying. This mechanic gives you a way to get even crazier high scores, and it's easy to replay stuff in this game. On the main menu, you can head to the town hall, where you can save and watch replays. I use it as a chance to re-listen to the songs. There's another awesome new feature too. You get to play multiplayer now. If you're cursed like me, no one wants to play with you because you win too often, you can play against the CPU. The CPU is actually not too bad, it doesn't feel unfair or anything, and it's a decent challenge. It's also just kind of novel, having the chance to rap with a friend. It's very cute. Another thing to mention, have you noticed PaRappa's hat? It's standard orange, meaning we're playing on standard difficulty. Beat the game 3 times, and each time you'll get a different colored hat. There's blue, pink, and yellow. Each time you beat the game, it becomes slightly harder, too. If you want to change what hat you're using, you click R3 after loading your save, and when the hat changes color to the one you want, you'll hit start. There were other hats, like a black one, but that one never actually came to be. Since I don't have an interview with Ito to piece together how these crazy songs came about, I have to admit to feeling a little gypped. Some of these songs are just so wild that you can't help but like them and want to know what in the world got them to where they are. We're gonna go through stage by stage, song by song, and give each of them a little listen.
You got to move. You know, doing good now. Come on and cut. Cut. Very nice.
Unfortunately, this song is the weakest to me. I also can't help but compare it to Onion's song in PaRappa 1, and that's probably the biggest problem here. It tries too hard to be like that one. It just isn't as good. I think it's serviceable, it has some good lines, but I don't really go back to it. Fun fact though, if you've been on the internet long enough, you might have seen this. This is the happy disc that came with meals in McDonald's. This level here is the only playable one on that disc. But instead of the generic burger place shown in the real game, this happy disc has it reskinned as McDonald's. Corporate America what?
Wear your best dress and I'll take you to heaven. Yes, yes, yes. Hi, hi. Hold hands.
Hold hands.
Face to face.
Face to face.
Get romantic.
When I played this stage for the first time, it sold me a little more on what the overall experience was going to be like. It's so funny and it's a pleasure to see Onion again. The song gets a little tropey with the hints to how Onion sounded in the past, but the context of the song keeps me invested. I also laughed out loud when I saw PJ and PaRappa hold hands.
You came to the right place. I'll make it big.
I came to the right place. You big, you big.
What's this? What's this? What's this? A trick with a twist. Somebody do something, call somebody and make it quick.
This is the song that actually caught my attention. It's like the one really tacky Black Eyed Peas song where they talk about how no one in America does anything about fighting in the world and a bunch of other cultural issues. Except this is written in a witty way that makes me want to bounce my head to it and listen harder. I personally think this is the second best song, but you tell me what you think. I don't really have anything to say about this one. I don't connect with it that much. It really just got hype when she referenced the driving song.
Introducing the new flavor. Cutting hair can be fabulous. So don't just stand there. Come inside, have a seat, and relax. I promise you, everything will be alright. Okay, baby, let's go. We're going to do it like this.
Man, the drum beat and the bass line in this song pop. Like, I love it. It's a scenario and the lyrics that just don't hit for me. I feel like the rhymes are really simple.
Make it quick, come on, get down.
I am the man, you all know my name now. I got all cash money and fame.
You are the man, we all know your name now. You got all cash money and fame.
I like the idea of this pixelated world with a SNES sound chip. I just don't think it pairs well with the hip-hop lyrics.
Suck it, I know you all like it. Slap it, suck it, I know we all like it. Smell it, taste it, pasta in the market. Smell it, taste it, fruit in the basket.
This one is really fun. The music is playful, and the lyrics are varied and go wild. The characters in the video are also a blast to watch, changing all the time as they move around. It's not my favorite song in the game, but I really like it as a confrontation with the big bad.
Hero lives in your neighborhood. You ought to be proud because he's a tough little kid. I always believe that never retreating. PaRappa's the name and he'll give you a fix. To all the brother and the sister.
To all the brothers and the sisters.
So, I think it's sweet that they reference the final level in the first game with the dance party thing, but it's a little redundant here. In PaRappa 1, they do it as like, yay, PaRappa gets celebrated by his teachers because that was the point of the game. He had stuff to learn, so why are the masters on this stage if they don't even really have anything to say? And the Flea MC wasn't even referenced by Katie in this game like he was in the last as part of Sunny Funny's birthday surprise. I don't know, I don't hate it. It's a fun time, but it's redundant. I feel like that's the outcome of a lot of the raps in this game. Very repetitive or somewhat empty. Part of that is that I haven't enjoyed them for as long as the first game's OST, so maybe one day I will think of them more fondly. Wait, I forgot something.
But then soon we overcame them all. One by one, side by side, we gave each other love that's real and everlasting, warm. Real love. We've come a long way.
This is not even a playable rap, and it's so good. When I heard this for the first time, I literally shot up in my seat before rocking back and forth for the jazziness of this thing. It's so smooth and the vocals are delivered just as sleek. It's literally perfect. No joke, it's my favorite song in all of PaRappa now. I'd play the whole thing if I felt like that wouldn't bore you to tears. Look it up later if you like what you hear. I know I will. Side note, PaRappa's voice actor, Fox Dread, has only done work in one other video game. Get hyped because it's... It's no secret that depending on the region a game is going to be released in, a game can go through very heavy censorship. Sony made lots of changes here, and most of them happened because they really wanted to push PaRappa towards kids again. Let's go back to that Greenblatt interview for a minute.
Although PaRappa 2 seems to be aimed at children, the age of the average PlayStation 2 owner is 18 to 25. Sony's American advertising people know this. How do you feel about them marketing the game to an older audience?
Actually, it has never been very clear who PaRappa 2 is aimed at. I don't really think it's a game for young children. It is difficult for them to play and contains some pretty complicated subject matter. Matsuro likes the ambiguity of who the market for PaRappa 2 is for, but for me and the marketing people, it is a real problem.
Since the first game, Greenblatt and Matsuro had struggled with coming to an agreement on the marketing, and it's pretty obvious with some of the tone here. When it comes to the differences, two stand out specifically. The first change happens in the first stage, Toasty Buns. In the UK and Japan, the line reads, "We cook the best, tastes better than wine." In the US, it says, "We cook the best, you better get in line." Then in both Stage 3, Big, and in Stage 6, Food Court, the word Lord gets replaced with man. Fun fact, in Stage 6, the subtitles leave out the Lord but fail to replace the man with it. Lammy has what Greenblatt considered hypersexual marketing, so in this game, Sony took all aspects of that out. To the surprise of Greenblatt, though, they didn't alter the romantic dance scene at all. Leaving it in is an awesome joke. Media literacy, yay! They also changed pretty small things, like increasing the length of the instructor's outfit in Stage 4, while removing a bikini entirely from the jump rope machines that still turn the rope with their racks. Very bizarre. Besides those studio changes, there are other little things, like the rating system in Japan being all caps, or a difference in loading screen between each region. One thing I thought was especially neat is that the song Sunny Sings has its own special video in only the US. Once you beat the game once, you've got to wait a minute or two before a secret song plays, and then the video starts up. Here's a snip of that alternate title theme.
Who with an attitude on the right track, leader of the back, kicking back, never looking back. You know my words will satisfy.
On a side note, if you hold down the R triggers, you can take the inputs and turn them into ninja stars. When this happens, all the buttons do the same thing, so it's like extra chill mode. Besides all this, there's tons of other stuff that was cut or unused, and a lot of that stuff is findable on the Cutting Room Floor website. Here's the complete in-box experience for the North American PaRappa 2. Gorgeous color manual, hollow foil cover, the works. I bought this a couple years ago for maybe $20, and now, well, it's not great price-wise. $40 loose, $80 complete. One thing I've noticed here is that pricing is all over the place. On Mercari, I've seen it sold for $50 complete, and now there's an open copy selling for nearly $200. eBay has it all over the place too, so I don't really know what's inflating prices right now. On PS4 and 5, the PlayStation Store has an emulated version of the game for $10, so that might be the best way to go if you're not a physical collector. One thing to keep in mind is that the Japanese copies of PaRappa 2 are still voiced in English, so if you have a free McBoot, that might be the way around the price. Just remember that their controllers have 0 and X flipped. Ever since I made that PaRappa 1 video, I started to watch the anime. The most successful way to watch it is a 4K fan remaster here on YouTube. I'll link it below, don't worry. The DVDs are Japan only, and yeah, you can play them on your PS4 or other region-free players, but each DVD goes for over $50 on eBay, and they are not commonly on the site. Of course, I'd love to own them, but that's not going to happen with my lousy income these days. Alright, so I bet you've wondered to yourself, how and why did a PaRappa anime even come out? Well, Sony wanted to push more PaRappa 2 sales, and they thought it would be best to market it towards kids in animated form. While marketing it toward kids, that also meant more toy sales. They were pulling a Bandai here. Greenblatt didn't agree, by the way. He wanted a teen audience like I mentioned earlier. And without being too much of a tone shift, the show is a little neutered down. But it's still very enjoyable and preposterous, just as you'd expect. So, in 2001, Fuji TV, SME Visual Works, and JC staff all worked together to get PaRappa out there, with Gabin Ito, Masaya Matsuda, and the rest of the main four still being a major part of the show. There are 30 episodes in total, and to be transparent, I have watched around 20. I'll definitely be watching all of them sooner than later. A common complaint people bring up with the show is that PaRappa, the rapping dog, only raps one time, and it's in the last episode for less than 60 seconds. The music in general is quite good though, using some backing tracks from the first game, but there are only 25 songs in total, including the opening and endings. I don't mind it so much because the placement of these songs actually works fantastically. The show is really well edited. I've heard people speculate that the show is a prequel of sorts to both games, and that's why PaRappa and his friends don't actually play their instruments or use their voices as often as you'd expect. But that doesn't quite work since there are new characters never seen in either game, or the spin-off. Lammy doesn't exist in this world, and the only master you meet is Chop Chop. There are new characters that would be vital to PaRappa's world, like his little sister Pinto, and one of his best friends, Matt, another dog. There's also Katie's rival and friend, Paula, and the main antagonists of the show who show up nearly every episode to mess with the main cast, Gaster, a bunny, and Gruber, a cat. As for the characterizations here, this is actually how I prefer the cast to be. PJ is weird and quiet until he gets behind a turntable. He's also the physical comedy of the show, always falling asleep at the worst times. PaRappa is a good-hearted kid, always bending over backwards to help out his friends, and they do the same for him. But he's still an anxious mess, daydreaming about all the worst outcomes. Katie is sassy and hot-headed, but she balances out really well with Sunny, who's portrayed almost angelic until she makes a mistake and the repercussions are something she has to fix on her own. And Matt is one of the best characters in the PaRappa universe, being sort of like a softer spin on the shonen protag. I just really love the overall chemistry that goes down between everyone here, even with side characters. Everyone has their moment. As for the story, every episode is its own thing. There's not much carryover. But you definitely want to play the games during or before watching, because there are lots of little things that you can pinpoint and be like, oh, that's a spin on the flea market in the first one. The theme of PaRappa 2, the whole growing up thing, is actually in an episode here, but it's Matt who wants to grow up, and it ends up taking him, PJ, and PaRappa on a crazy trip where they run away from home to work for every single meal and whatever else. I'm just scratching the surface, obviously, but the episodes that are more original are just as great, fleshing out the characters who need it the most. I'm sure you noticed by now, but the animation is actually of high quality. It's super colorful, and the world looks great in both lighting and color choice. It feels like the games, but better to me. They reuse animation pretty often, just like most shows, but they do interesting things with that aspect to add to the scene. I wouldn't say it's the best anime in the world. It doesn't have some huge message or anything, but it doesn't matter. It's a great time, and it feels like more than just a licensed cash grab. Most important of all, I didn't feel like I wasted my time watching it, and I'd recommend it to anyone who cares. PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale came out in 2012, and that's the last new game that PaRappa has been in. Of course, for the 20th anniversary, we got PaRappa Remastered, but that's just not enough. We all crave PaRappa. Matsura has hinted before that the third game would have followed a married Sunny and PaRappa, with their son aiming to be the best rapper in town. But it's been a pipe dream. It's also been a while since we even got new PaRappa merch, the last time I remember it being by that Totaku brand in 2018. I kinda wish I had one of these, but I gave mine away as a gift. In Japan, the last PaRappa thing that happened was a Tokyo Skytree Cafe event, where the menu was all PaRappa themed. But that was also in 2017, when the anniversary happened. So this is just one of those lost franchises now, and it really shouldn't be. I'll still have a bit of hope. I mean, I noticed that much like Klonoa, PaRappa got ported to multiple consoles to test out the interest in the series. Maybe one day, at the very least, we could get a trilogy like the Reverie collection. It's just a shame that with all the recent games that are clearly inspired by PaRappa that keep coming out, and with how there are zero rhythm Sony games, that PaRappa wouldn't be up for consideration. It just stinks that the mainstream industry is so unwilling to try bringing something out that's a risk. I mean, let's be real. It doesn't take The Last of Us money to make a PaRappa game, and I think the world needs some boundless creativity. This is an easy recommendation for me. Go play it. Go watch it. And thanks for watching this.